Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to your Maverick Pilgrim channel. Maverick Pilgrim here. And of course, we got our Matt Chewman, as
I'm
always, as
I'm
often as
back.
possible. He's
Here I
back.
am. Here it is.
Back.
Another beautiful Sunday morning.
So today we are talking about heroes. Heroes.
You're my hero.
Oh, Matt, that end the stream.
All right, there it is.
Perfect response. All right. Yeah, no, the idea of heroes, such a big deal, such a big topic. I mean, when we say heroes, there's probably already people who think probably 10 different ways that we're going to have this conversation, right?
Oh yeah, you can go down many different avenues with this. Many.
I think I think when we say heroes, I think a lot of people start to think about their childhoods. I feel like that's sort of like ripe childhood hero. That's the time in our life when we have these kind of sort of aspirations, right? It's sort of like when little kids will say, "My dad is the strongest man in the world."
Mm.
Right? There's these things, and of course, every dad kind of chuckles because hopefully the dad realizes that they aren't.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
You'd,
Yeah.
you'd hope so, but that's in that window of time where, you know, I remember as a kid, there were kids who would get into fistfights over whose dad is stronger, like those types of things. You have these heroes, these people that you look up to, and so today we want to talk about the concept of a hero, and we're going to more so settle in the fictional end of that pool, and kind of talk about some of those things. So, and I don't know this because I just said we were going to talk about this, but Matt, who's your hero? Who was your fictional hero when you were a young buck?
Man, it's also now you changing the question up on me. Now you're saying when I was young, because now my hero. Yeah, so when I was
Yeah.
young, because so I would say there's three different heroes I have, but there's one that right now I would say is my favorite fictional hero. But the three heroes I would say when I was young, it was it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just as a kid, 'cause I loved his movies like the Terminator and Predator and all that stuff. Obviously not kid appropriate, but you know, I was watching them, baby. So no, but it was just a I don't know, just the manliness that he had. He was just this total, tough guy that would get stuff done and go protect whoever, save whoever, giant arms. And to this day, that's why I still work out my arms all the time because that imprinted in me as a child. But so yeah, that as a kid was Arnold. Didn't matter what movie it was. But then I would say right now as an adult, or actually as a kid as well, because I loved Dragon Ball Z. I was big into that. So it would be Goku. He was always the greatest hero in the sense because he always would just get just annihilated or destroyed, but he'd always come back and somehow win and save the world over and over again. But right now, my I would say my favorite fictional hero from like my teenage years to now, when I still hold it, is Gandalf from Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
I love how Gandalf is, where just this wise old man that he just everyone comes to him with questions and like, oh, where's Gandalf? I'll give they look to him as that light. He brings the knowledge and everything on how to get through. He doesn't muster with strength or anything else. It's all about his wisdom that I just love.
like the mystery, is that also like kind of a makes it larger than life?
That, and I also love in a sense, almost the duality nature of Gandalf, because obviously, he sacrifices himself as Gandalf the Grey, and then he comes back as Gandalf the White, and it's just these two different, like, they're both lovable Gandalfs, but there's a little bit of difference in them. There's different roles that they're playing. Gandalf the Grey is kind of like this behind the scenes old, like, wise guy that was kind of this goofy guy, just kind of making jokes and everything, little tricks. But then he sacrificed, he goes to battle, and then he comes back as Gandalf the White, where he's actually riding on the white horse. It's almost like a Christ figure in that sense, where he helps save.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's Helm's Deep. He helps save it and everything. So yeah,
totally.
I
So Trinity says my son's watching Dragon Ball Super
super
right now. You
yeah.
watching that yourself, Mr. Chuman?
I've already yeah. I've when I wow, I think it's 2021 when I got sick. I bought all the DVDs to Dragon Ball Super. I was loving it because of the animation is really because he got so much better now. Because back in the day with Dragon Ball Z, the animation was kind of I mean it was still cool, but obviously now the technology they have the animation for Dragon Ball Super is off the chain. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I watched all of them.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I think might I don't think it's talked about enough. The times when you're sick,
Oh, dude,
that's when you sometimes find new heroes
yep,
or new things, you know?
yep.
Uh
That's the time to get it in. You're just laying in bed, you have nothing else to do.
yeah. Can
Yeah.
only watch Price is Right so many times before you say, "Oh, what comic books do I have?" or something.
Oh, dude. Oh, Dragon Ball Z is my go-to when I'm sick. Oh, not Dragon Ball Z, that one too, but Lord of the Rings, because
Hmm.
I've seen them so many times, and they're such great movies where I can just fall asleep if I'm sick and wake up and it's still playing because they're so long, and I can just get
Right.
right back into it because I know where I'm at. It's like, all right, let's start watching it.
So, and you mentioned that like the length of time, like I think we start to when we start to talk about heroes, the concept of an epic, this long form kind of story where you can sort of be with those characters or those heroes for a long period of time. You know,
Yep.
Lord of the Rings. I mean, what Lord of the Rings fan who likes the movies doesn't just watch the extended versions, and all of a
Oh,
sudden it becomes, you know, a
oh
whole
yeah,
weekend of
dude,
these things.
turns into it turns into an yeah, and it's an event. It really is.
Yeah.
It's an event.
And I think that's partly why heroes are really important, important for us. So, yeah, and I did throw you a curveball because I didn't say young when you were young, but that's when we really start to look outside ourselves for those characters, for those
Hmm.
heroes. And the reason why I think we should focus on fictional things is because there's something that heroes do for us, just in general, the concept of a hero, that I think lends itself to fiction. And I think one really big part of that is heroes get to show the impact, the ramification of things that we have never experienced, for one,
Hmm.
but they show it to us in a way that is bigger than life, that is scarier than real life, and helps us to work through our own story in such a way. So as a kid, everything's bigger than you,
Hmm.
right? And I don't know if you've gone back to like your elementary school or something from when you were a kid, or you know, fill in the blank. Maybe it was a store you always went to when you were a kid and you hadn't been there, but and you come back and you think, wow, this is smaller than I remember.
Oh no, I remember being, I think, in the first grade and seeing the fifth graders and like, oh man, they're so old and big. Like they look like adults, and then now it's like fifth graders are just little kids. It's like, man, the perception is, yeah, it's just funny how the perception is.
And our
Yeah,
perception's way off, but I think
yeah.
that's part of the setting, right? We look and things are bigger than all things, but also then the scary things are scarier. They're bigger and they're scarier when you're a kid. And so
Yep.
having a place so you can go to a store, you can open a book. You know, some people are better at this than others, but opening the book and being able to have a contained story where it's just there, right? Some people close the book and they feel like they're still living it, right? There's
Mhm.
you know, things jumping out in the dark, or who else was afraid to go into the basement or into the garage when you were a little kid at night, you know, because it's like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, what if fill in the blank bad guy is out there,
Mhm.
um and you know, I don't know if Arnold's going to be around to save me, so you think about, I have to do something, you know. So anyway, these big things, but what happens is you open the book, the comic book, watch the movie, whatever, watch the TV show, and the situations your heroes are in, the build up, the anticipation, they build up the oh, this is, we can't do this, we can't figure this out, and then the hero does. Something happens, they show something, but the hero makes it through. And you could almost, as a kid, say having someone else in a difficult situation that works its way out, as a kid, that's powerful. Like there is a way through, and it almost, what it does is it starts to lay the ground for what we later would call hope.
Mhm.
You start to have hope. And so if, you know, and I'm sorry, I haven't watched Dragon Ball, so I can't, but like Goku does a thing in this extreme situation, then I can do a thing in this situation,
Mhm.
right? If Superman can save someone from a burning building, I can give a presentation in front of my classmates. And that sounds like a silly comparison thing, but it's almost like if that huge thing can happen, then this smaller thing in my life that I have, I can take on.
Hmm.
And then there are things that are too big for you. Mom has cancer, dad lost his job, things that are completely outside of you. It's like sometimes you need that platform to say, you know what, there is this possibility of things working out properly. We can actually accomplish something. Um, yeah, and Trinity comments here, hope is the quintessential human delusion. And I think that to a certain extent, that depends on your position, depends on where you're looking at. Because if you look at situation, you say, what's the reality? What are the odds? What are the stats? Right?
Hmm.
Han Solo would say, never tell me the odds.
Hmm.
You know, uh, so it's sort of those like it's those situations where your heroes become important.
Yeah.
Um, I think. I don't know. Do you have a situation where that was the case for you, where your hero was able to help you in that way?
Not, not really. No. Yeah. I'm trying to think back with that type of situation. Um, if anything, the idea when I was looking like as a kid thinking of Arnold as like my hero is more he was just more surface level as just like a little boy thinking like he was just such a it's like what a man's supposed to be, at least culturally how it was dealt with, like how to deal with issues and how to overcome uh diversity or not diversity, just overcome issues and everything. I'm trying to think back about not quite like that, but also I'll be honest, as a little kid, dude, I was a I was a very simple child. Like just give me a ball. I was nothing much was going on in the sense of I was I was just dude. I was my head was in the clouds quite a bit as a kid.
Yeah, I think you could probably break down like who is your hero in a lot of different. Like who's cool. Like I like that hero because they're just super cool, and maybe that can go to like kind of the comic book motif of things where man they're just drawn so amazing like this they just look so I don't there's no
Oh
other word,
yeah.
they look so cool.
Well, that's what a
It's
lot with Dragon Ball Z because they're all super ripped and they're all just working. Yeah, so you're right. It's all about like that image, is that visual that really, especially like like little boys, like it's like the idea of the army man and then the dolls for women or girls for the most part, right? Guys, for the most part, boys will be drawn to the GI Joe for the most part. So obviously that visual of it being cool, something gets implanted into us.
yeah, oh, there's something cool or like um my little nephew, he loves to like do a thing and have it make a big noise and he's like,
Hmm.
oh, I did that. And I
Yep.
think that's also part of it. Like you did a thing and it was a really big thing. Anyway, I think that's sort of that aspect of like being cool, you know.
Hmm. Now,
Um,
what was your hero as a kid?
oh, mine as a kid, it's funny because like I have a couple as well, but um, I remember, and my mom tells me to do this, running around like Spider-Man. Spider-Man was a
There
hero,
you
and I
go.
think that was more like he's really cool. It was
Hmm.
more like that, like a kind of hero. But I think when I saw Indiana Jones when I was 6,
Okay,
and then like Indiana Jones became
that's a good
like a
one.
hero for me.
Yeah.
Um, Sort of that he was sort of a good mix. He
Hmm.
was like classic old 1930s serial kind of hero where he was smart, but he was adventurous. Like he could do it, but he also like he had to work really hard. Like he did get punched in the face, but he didn't
Yep.
keep him from doing his thing. Um, so I think those are, and then I think later on, like when you, and then this is another thing, like sometimes a hero is someone that you just admire. So you
Hmm.
look at what they did or something, you're like, I want to do that in the situation that I'm in. And I
Yep.
think that's actually Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings.
Ah, that's a good one. The hidden hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the like you look back on it, it's like without Sam, none of this would have worked, wouldn't have happened. Like,
We know what's funny about that. It's something my dad always says. Like the idea where Gandalf says about Gollum, leave him. You don't know what role he may play because obviously without Gollum and because you're right, without Sam you don't get the ring to a Mordor either. But without Gollum, you don't get him biting off Frodo's finger and him falling into the
yeah,
to the lava. So it's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
it's true, and that's like the unexpected or the anti-hero kind
Yeah.
of motif. Like it's not quite to that level, but
No,
you're like, hey,
With the Golem one, it is a little weird, right? Because it almost goes back to what you're talking about off air with the low key visual, where like because you see the battle between Gollum and Smeagol, where like Smeagol is actually a good, like he was just a normal hobbit and fine, and then obviously the ring's power is pulling this shadow self out of him, and he's got this duality. But like Smeagol is actually a good guy. Like Smeagol's likable. He likes Frodo. He's his master. He wants to serve him, and it is it's very interesting being able to. You can see with the cool part with this idea of the hero. You can see hero heroic traits in everybody. Just because somebody isn't a hero per se, like as a title, you can find heroic traits in every single person, which actually goes back to the last couple of years. What was the big slogan? Oh, they're heroes. They're heroes. Just normal people, right? And doing
Yeah,
things that are good things, right? I mean, I remember when I was working through it, and people will be like, "Thanks for thanks for doing what you're doing. You're being a hero." I'm like, "I'm just doing my job." Like I'm not. Like,
right.
I'm just. Don't trust me that. Please
Thanks
don't
a
say
lot.
that.
I'm gonna go
Yeah.
clock out and go home. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is. Yeah. It's cool though that you can see traits like that in every little character.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another aspect too is sometimes we see a story where we want like we either are living out or want to live out something in that story, and so that wanting to live out some aspects, so we want certain events to take place so that we can exhibit a heroic nature.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think anyone asks for a burning building, but it's almost like sometimes people put in their minds, like, if there's a burning building, I'm going to run in,
Yep.
you know, or if this bank's going to get robbed, I'm going to help. I'm going to do something. I'm going to act. And
Yep.
so I think sometimes we have that sort of aspect where we see or we read a hero doing a thing. It's
Yeah.
like, or
Absolutely.
sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, or sometimes it's not quite we want the situation. Sometimes the situation arises and they go through and do the same thing, right? And
Hmm.
so again, here's this comment from Trinity. I'll put up here. 2002, I watched Uncle Ben die on screen same day that my father died, and so that's a powerful thing
Hmm.
when you see. And I know there's a whole conversation to be had about representation, but I think that is a better discussion for representation, is not just how someone looks, but how someone acts and how someone lives through something.
Hmm.
So when someone goes through something traumatic and you go through something traumatic and you both talk about it, there's a camaraderie. So to have someone who is heroic go through the same thing, and it's almost like you can see how that prompted them. Like
It's a good
you
example for them.
it's a good example, and I think it's an example, but then there's some feet to it, because can you get more iconic in comics? There's like a few pivotal ones with like Uncle Ben
Hmm.
dying and that having an effect on Spider-Man,
Yep.
on Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. Sorry, spoiler alert. Spider-Man's Peter Parker. I don't know.
Yeah.
But also like Batman.
Yep. His parents and everything.
That's almost the same situation,
Very.
but a
Yep.
but a very different representation or presentation of what
Yeah.
happens. But it's in the same vein.
Yeah. What manifests after the event and how they, what roads and avenues they go down. And it is interesting too, like with the idea, and it's really important actually, because we are very, what's the word I'm looking for? We are influenced greatly by what we watch, what we see, what we take in, especially as kids, right? Like we're talking about our heroes, and it's really important that the certain heroes that we do stick onto, that will have an effect on us growing up, because you see, and it's actually, you see the culture right now and how like the heroes are changing a little bit. Like you and me, like you having a hero as a kid as Superman or Spider-Man, that's a pretty good hero to have influencing you, because they have good morality, they have conscience, they have empathy, they have all these traits that are human. But now you're starting to get the type of like psychopath hero where they do something like a vigilante where they're doing something good, but they're not a really good person. Like Dexter would be a good example. Like some people like Dexter, where he's this guy that's killing bad people, but he's a psychopath himself, and it's like, but people like that and they get drawn to that, which is kind of scary because now they're being influenced, and their hero is not really this good guy. It's different than you being, oh, Spider-Man was my hero, because now you have this morality. So it's interesting how we can how influenced we are though as humans when we take in take in these stories, and it's important, like you're talking about.
Kind of a maybe a weird real life sort of question that or situation that pops up. I think we all have in our friend group, especially as guys, and how that usually plays out. There's someone who we would say you shouldn't have children
Yeah.
because
Yep.
you are very irresponsible.
Hmm.
But what's funny is and I've seen it happen many times where those individuals have children, and because they have children, they step up and become great dads
100%. Yep.
because the opportunity arose, right? And that would
Yep.
probably be the positive of what you're describing with Dexter. Dexter
Hmm.
is a serial killer who uses that and does, we would say, vigilante good things. It's like the
Hmm.
deteriorated kind of idea and concept of that. Like, it's the situation. If I was put in the situation and had to do a heroic thing, would I do a heroic thing?
Yep.
If I was in the situation, would I do it? So I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch. It probably is, but it's sort of that idea: is when the opportunity arises, will you arise and accomplish heroic things?
Hmm.
And I think all of us would say that we would want to.
Yeah.
One of those scenes is actually, it's more of a real life depiction, but in Saving Private Ryan, where, like, really impactful scene, right? Where what is his name? Is it Upham?
I can't
I think his
remember.
name's not, but he's like the translator dude, and his buddy is being killed upstairs with the enemy. The
Hmm.
enemy's attacking him, and like hand to hand, and kills him. And as the enemy walks down the stairs, Upham is so scared that he doesn't do anything, and the enemy like sees him and just walks past him.
Hmm.
And it's like the most kick in the gut sort of thing, because I think we all hope that if there was a situation where we could do something heroic to help someone, that we would be the hero. And I think we fear that we will be Upham.
Hmm.
When it happens, we'll freeze, we'll hide, we'll be scared. And so it's interesting how often people who do heroic things make the decision far in advance of what they're going to do, which is why having heroes when you're younger is so important, and the kinds of heroes, because it helps you to already make those decisions when that happens. And how often do we hear on the news, like, I didn't even think, I just went in and I jumped in the water and I saved the,
Yep.
like, pulled the guy out.
We know it's interesting you bring that up, but I want to. So, what's the opposite of a heroic trait?
An unheroic trait.
Well, I would
uh
say it's cowardness, right? Being a coward.
yeah,
So,
cowardice.
and what's interesting is how that is obviously so ingrained to us as human beings. Like we hate in ourselves if we see cowardness in ourselves, and we hate seeing cowards outwardly. Like it's just something that's ingrained into us. That's why we love heroes. We love someone that's heroic. They're the person that's going to jump in the water and save the person, not the person sitting there scared, not doing it. And it's actually interesting when you go biblically, who's the first people that get thrown in? God hates cowards. Like there's something that is ingrained into us as human beings, that being a coward is not, it's a sin. Almost, it's really sinful, that we all know and we all feel it, right? And it's important that, like you're saying with this, we all want to think that we won't, but when it comes down to it, we don't know until that whistle's blown. Like you're saying though, you have to prepare for yourself. And it's actually funny you're talking about it. Like as a kid, before I'd go to bed, I'd always be thinking about, because obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, my hero.
Yeah,
I'd be thinking in my mind like, all right, a visual of like, fifth grade, the girl I like, I want to save her in the situation, like almost like putting myself in the role of Arnold, and she's
yeah,
like on the playground being captured, and I'm going to go save her, whatever it was. And it's interesting that you're bringing that up, how we need to, I think it's actually an important mental exercise for us, especially in the climate we're living in right now in the world and the culture, to put yourself mentally in situations that if A and B happens, what are you going to do? If you're in line and someone comes and or you're walking down the street and you see like a little old lady getting mugged, or you see something going on, some type of injustice, what are you going to do? Because I'm seeing all these videos online that things happen, man, and people just stand there and they're just like watching horrible things go down, and no one does anything. Grown men that could do something, especially if
yeah.
everyone, and they just sit there and watch something go down. So it's something that's really important that you're bringing up.
I wonder if part of that is we spend so much time watching these things that when they happen, we forget like, oh, I'm not watching it. Like it's
Yeah,
happening. Like
yeah,
this is happening right now, and I'm a part of this thing. So I wonder if that might be we're almost with the screens, we're almost training ourselves to view a thing
yeah.
and not participate in a thing.
Well, bro, it desensitizes, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's one thing that always gets me so I don't want to say frustrated, but it makes me see the hypocrisy of certain political sides that like are against guns and gun violence, but then they are the ones pushing TV and movie shows that only show gun violence that desensitizes people to these issues. And it's just hypocritical. It's like you can't be against this, but then be promoting it for entertainment value because it's all it's doing is desensitizing. Like the idea of showing a whole bunch of gun violence and on TV and making it look cool is in showing to the kids and the younger generation the culture. This is something that we do. This is cool. You know, it's
Yeah.
like
And I
it's
think
hypocritical.
you could go back 20 years and have the same thing on TV. How many spy shows or cop shows, intelligence shows were talking about terrorism
Oh
and
yeah,
trying to get people to like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is terrible, and
yeah,
want to join the military and do that. You're right. And that's, I think, where you take story and you take heroes and you weaponize it. And that's
hundred
where it
percent,
starts to walk down towards propaganda. And that's
hundred
where
percent.
story is used not to highlight these big ideas of the human experience to bring about those proper outcomes, but instead drives people to their outcome. And
Yeah,
they say it's the same sort of thing they used to do in old historic paintings. Like we're talking like Napoleonic era, they would do those sorts of things. They have these beautiful looking battle scenes and just make people feel inspired to go and join the fight because look how glorious this looks. And it's like, I
yeah,
don't know if anyone who's been in war where you're close enough to smell your enemy's breath
it's pretty
really
bad.
thinks that as they're in the middle of it, like I'm doing a glorious thing. I think they're like, I just need to survive. I did want to do one thing though. I want to go back because you mentioned cowardice being sinful. And I think one thing we have to remember is the actual definition of sin is the imperfect thing. That's the actual
Missing the mark.
real
Yep.
definition is there's a mark or there's a target and you missed it. And I would
Yeah.
say cowardice in general is a missing of the mark. And I think we would all agree with that because I think
Yeah.
some people take the word sinful and they think you just mean like totally
Immoral.
evil person, immoral
Yeah.
person. And it's like
Yeah.
that's not how the
It's not a
word is
definition.
defined.
No.
It's the missing of the mark. And so I think when you
100%.
put it that way, yeah, like
Yep.
weeks and weeks ago we talked about David and Saul.
Yep.
David was heroic,
Saul is not.
Saul was a coward,
Yep.
and he wouldn't go out there. And I think that right there, that's the picture that we're looking at. So the
Yep.
imperfect is the king who's a coward and doesn't want to go. David is the young guy who has no reason to go and no experience to go in war, but he goes.
And
And
what's
I think that's
interesting
the
too, and
difference.
what's cool with that story is the coward is the one that looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the hero is the one that looks like Sam. You know, because like
Yeah.
Saul was a big, strong dude. You know, he was what you would think of as a hero, and David was the little Frodo. You know, the little Sam that's walking around like, no, you know, he's the hero, not this
Don't
guy.
don't we love those stories too? My
Oh,
mind goes back
love
to
that.
the
Yeah.
first Spider-Man movie where Spider-Man is not even in his real suit. He's in his just
Yep.
dumb thing that he got out of his closet and he's
And then
fighting Bonesaw,
yeah, yep, in the
you
in the
know.
cage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
like we love seeing the little guy beat the big guy.
Yep.
Why do you think that is?
Love the underdog story. Yeah. That's it's as old as time, man. It's 100%. Yeah.
I think it's cuz that's who we are.
Yeah.
I think in so many of situations we are the underdog.
Yep.
So we identify with the underdog. That's what we
Um,
want to do. We want to be that because in most situations that we can put ourselves in, we're not the most proficient. So if the underdog can't win, in some situations, like we can't win, and we're
Hey,
admitting it.
hey, God loves the underdog. I mean, and
Oh
that's why I
yeah,
love the quote. God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called. You know, so it's you. He will build within you what you need. You know, it's not a matter of it. It's just cool how He operates and how you being the underdog. He never gives you too much that you can't handle. Even though you may feel like the underdog, look at David. He was prepared his whole life to battle. Well, he had to battle. Yeah, I love it, man.
Samson
Love it.
is another example. He's probably a normal looking dude. Well,
Yeah,
I don't know, as normal as you can get with 7 massive natty dreads on your head. but he, from all accounts, he didn't look like super huge muscular dude, but he
They like
exhibited that.
they like portraying that he did.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
In an image, you have to show who, this
Yeah.
is our Simpson guy.
It wouldn't be good that little stick figure guy pulling down everything.
Yeah.
Like wait, yeah.
But I think we love that. It's almost for us. It's almost an ironic thing. But underdog is a better way of explaining it. It is. We do love the underdog. That's who we normally will. Think about this. An interesting story is not a hero who jumps in and can do anything and fixes everything and accomplishes everything, and there's not any real conflict. Superman is probably the closest example of this ultra capable human being, right? He's not really a human being. That's who he wants to be. He wants to show that he's human, right? That's why he lives like Clark Kent. But the what they do is they give it to him situationally. Like, it'd be easier for you to kill this guy, but you shouldn't, and he won't, right?
Yep.
Or there's 3 people in danger and he can only save 1, right? Those kind of situations where Superman has to be, he's ultra capable, but he's not omnipresent, so he has to choose. And that's where the drama happens. But normally with people, we would look at them to say they're not actually ultra capable. And so that's how you get that underdog story. So there has to be something that you have to have conflict. If you don't have conflict, you don't have a story.
Well, what we like to see in our hero is a little bit of deficiency in something, so they become an overcomer of it. Because that underdog, to be an underdog, you have to have some type of deficiency. There has to be something that you see that there's not this perfect hero. Like, there's something that they are weak in, but part of the story is them overcoming that weakness or persevering through it and then showing their heroic nature. Another one, I don't know if you've ever seen Game of Thrones. I know it's pretty bad, but that's another one where Jon Snow is this type of underdog hero where he becomes like this. Everyone loves Jon Snow, like any Game of Thrones enthusiast. But he's obviously, like, especially in the first couple of seasons, he's the underdog. He's not like this born, because he's not part of the actual. At least later on, you find out where who his parents are and everything. But he was not this. He wasn't like the born prince coming up that was perfect, hero. He was like this kind of underdog that perseveres and shows his stripes through his actions and through his heroic nature in battle and everything. So yeah, it's cool. Every single story, anything with fiction, anything you're looking at, like in movies, magazines, comics, books, they all have certain characteristics, but we do love the underdog. We love it.
I think I think we will have many more conversations like this on heroes and different aspects and different things. I think to kind of close out, I think there is actually one character that right now, presently, is, I think, a character that, whether people admit it or not, it's the character they're looking for. It's the character that they want as a hero. I don't know. Can you guess?
Say it.
I think it's Daredevil.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
And I know that there's lots of different comic runs and different things, and I'm specifically gonna highlight the Daredevil character as in the Netflix Marvel shows.
Okay.
That is the more popular understanding, right? I don't think there's millions and millions and millions of Daredevil aficionados who have read all the comics. So the popular concept of Daredevil would be the one in the shows. But that idea of the hero who is deficient because he's blind, right? So we'd say in general he's blind, right? So he's missing a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But he compensates for that. But the thing with Daredevil is, especially it's exhibited in the shows really well, I think, is that he takes a punch, he gets knocked down, and he gets back up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to quote the song, and I don't want to say it, so I'm not going to.
Don't
he gets knocked down, he gets back up. He gets knocked down, he gets back up. He's got scars, he's got marks, but he never gives up. He always gets back up. That's kind of his thing. He takes a punch and gets back up. And I think if you look at a lot of the hero archetypes, that's what we're really looking for in a hero to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've talked about a lot of different kinds of heroes and whatever, but to emulate, which is you take your hit and you get back up. And that idea of a hero is the one who never gives up is the hero. The one who makes it to the end is the hero.
That's the same thing with Captain America, which would be my favorite Marvel superhero. I love him for multiple reasons. I love I don't know the first Avengers that he's in. I love it when Thor's fighting uh, Iron Man, and they're in the helicopter, and then Captain America is going to jump down, and Black Widow's like, "Hey, be careful! They're practically gods." And I love how he goes, "Well, ma'am, there's only one God, and they don't look like that. They don't trust like that." And he
Don't just
jumps
like
out.
that.
I love that. I love that because I mean that's when obviously they're changing now, but that he was the believer in the biblical God, and Captain America is this great example of he didn't have the physical nature of a hero, but he had the heart. Like you're saying, get back up. He was this weak little guy that would fight, get punched, and then get back up. But he had that heart and that courage back to being heroic. One of the most major characteristics for being heroic is courage. Having
Right.
courage and being courageous in the face of diversity, or not diversity, of in the face of difficulty. That's what makes heroes really lovable, especially when they have a weakness and they overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think the Captain America story, just in general, is what if someone who had the heart of a hero was actually given the abilities of a hero?
100%.
And he's in the back alley getting beat up until he gets that superhero serum, and then he's super soldier serum, and then he's
And what's
a
cool,
hero, right?
and he stays the same guy because it could have
Right.
went both ways, right? Because there's many cases that he could have made that story where he then gets those powers, and then that changes who he is internally because now he has these characteristic traits, but he doesn't. He stays that same person internally, and with now the strength and the outward appearance, which is crucial because a lot of times, I mean, we all have our weaknesses, right? And if we all like to act and think, oh, if I had billions of dollars, I would do something different than Bill Gates. I would do something different than Elon. I'm a good person. But then you see, a perfect example is you look at the lottery winners, and it's actually a curse. It almost
Right.
ruins their life. It ruins their lives.
It's the ring.
Yes, 100%. It is.
Yeah.
It is the ring.
And I think that we're probably coming to that closing sort of mark, like put a bow on it, sort of time frame here. But that idea of the hero that you want to be and the hero that you want to see around you, I think that this is why people are so intense concerning their stories and so intense concerning I'll just say it, like nerd culture. I think nerd culture what it's called, but I think what it really is that people taking stories seriously, I think, is the thing. We wear the t-shirts because we want to identify each other. We have the bobbleheads because we want to be reminded, all these different things of nerdy stuff. I don't think is really nerdy stuff. I think it's the same as people who want to remember some of those stories to emulate those things, those either heroic deeds or the traits of a hero moving forward. I want to be reminded of those different things. So, but I guess we'll pick this up again soon.
Next week. Yeah.
Either
Absolutely.
next week we'll jump back in with another hero discussion or something along those lines. But any final words, Mr. Chewman? Not like you're dying. Just
No, yeah.
any last words for the stream?
Yeah, well, just whatever hero that you have in mind, really just analyze it. Why that is your hero? Like, what traits in that person are you drawn to? And then ask yourself, are you following after those traits? Are these traits, because we're going back to the idea there's different type of heroes, and there's some heroes you really shouldn't be idolizing. You shouldn't be looking to as like a good example. So really just evaluate internally why your hero is your hero. It's just a cool exercise that the individual can do.
Yeah, and I'd probably say if I had to have a closing statement of some kind, it would be in the situations you find yourself. If you aren't a hero, pretend to be a hero. What would a hero do? And the more you pretend, the more you'll be that.
I say that fake it till you make it. Like if you're at a job, you don't know what you're doing. If you just act like you know what you're doing, dude, it goes back to the idea when people are going through depression, they'll tell you, smile, just smile, force yourself to smile, and it will actually release the chemicals and the mental happiness. You will trick your body, biologically, you will trick your mind that you are happy because you are forcing to smile. So yeah, it's a good example.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, there you go. Maybe be someone's hero today. Smile.
Yep.
There you go.
There you go. It's amazing how much that could really help people, man. It is That's the littlest you could do. Just smile at somebody.
And it costs you nothing.
Nothing.
So do the cheapest heroic thing you can today. All right. And in that, Pilgrim on, my friends, we'll see you out there.
God bless.
Have a good one.